got up so early.
Well, I know. I didn't go to bed till 6. Man, I got this new phone and I keep getting all this spam.
Hit the do not disturb mode on your phone.
Well, I just what I started out. Oh, wait. So what I do is I just turn it off and then I go in and block it. But I started out by I'd answer the phone. I'd be like cursing at him, but it's always a recording, so that doesn't do any good. So here I'm gonna go here, block the MF. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, I clicked live, but oh yeah, there's 19 people in the house. Yeah. So let me turn the music down because it doesn't capture our
Yeah.
energy.
What is
It's
that
too
bullshit music in the background?
so
Zen playing back there? You have the
I
wrong.
don't know. It has all these different ones. You don't know what you're gonna get. I just clicked it. Yeah, I don't usually play it. Only when Julie's on, I play space music. 'Cause she's a guy. You see the way I knew when we first started doing shows. I got that intel. Like she's on to something. And now, like a lot of things, it's getting some traction. But like watching the numbers on her show, they're 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 up there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the lives and the replays are up there.
Julie's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she is pretty awesome.
Did you see the post where she was setting the agenda of the topics that she wanted to cover for yesterday?
No.
And it
What did it say?
I was just totally trolling her, which is my favorite activity.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, Julie and I are personal friends. We spend a lot of energy roasting each other. So on her post, she was just like, "Oh, I'm going on Todd Medina. These are the topics I'm going to explore." And then she just listed off like a bunch of her normal Julie Dahara Roberts style of technicalities.
Yeah.
So I just I wrote that. I commented. I'm like, "Look at you flexing your NASA genius." All I was going to do was talk about hamburgers and French fries and how I've been eating my weight in it this past couple of weeks. But yeah, you go ahead, talk about high level stuff. Why not? No, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, there's a lot of amazing people stepping up. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like your content has kind of taken a different bit of a shift, hey?
Yeah. Yeah, I think ever since August, when Morgan said, let's do the hero's journey. And then I see on the calendar, I see all these names and it'll say THJ. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I realized in September, I thought, oh, Soulogy's. Well, we talked about this when you came on and ambushed me last time. But that the hero's journey, it's always been. That's what it's always been. Soulogy's been about the hero's journey, the frequency of the hero's journey, which is a lot more than the traditional myth, mythos or whatever. But to me, because the hero's journey is just being yourself, right? Just being straight. And so I see that happening, with humanity. Really, I mean, you can say all the stuff. I had a friend of mine sent me a note. She actually lives in Gympie, where Morgan is, and Morgan connected with her and tried to get her on the show. She's one of she's one of these that has been around a long time. She's got that energy. Some of the ladies that have been coming on, some people might call them crones. I don't know, but anyway, so I then approached her and she's like, "No, I'm not ready, but I'm here. I'm supporting y'all, this and that." And then she wrote me a note today and she's like, because she's got pretty good intel, like you do, like a lot of people do. And she says, "I keep hearing Red October, Red Alert."
Oh man.
And I'm like, she goes, "Something big's coming." I said, "Every fucking day."
Yeah, I don't know. I stopped listening to that. It just
that's what I.
Every
what I
day.
said.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's funny. Just before I came on, I was watching Shanine's. She was making a parody with Yvonne.
The
Yes,
one with,
Vanya.
yeah, that was funny.
So it's a big parody about the community. I was laughing my ass off because it was well scripted, and a
Yeah.
lot of the I guess one of those things where I guess the evolution of the hero's journey has got to a point where we realize that part of the journey is we externalize a lot of our power, right? Like we as humans, we need the validation because we don't we aren't born in, a lot of us are not born in with full confidence, right? So it's one of those things where it's just like you're not so you do need the external validation, whether it comes through experiences or mentors or mirrors, or you're like grasping for identification of your ideal self in other people, right?
Yeah.
But then you get to a point where you're just like, what the hell am I following these fools for?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they are human. We're all human, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the point in the journey where you're intentionally grateful for your human. Because I was one of the guests that you had on last week, Christy Marie, I believe.
That was trippy.
She lost her memory in an accident, right? And then when I was so confused. I have to be honest. When I was watching her, everything about her confused me. Because so if you haven't seen that one, go back and watch it. And this is no disrespect for her. This is just my point of view, as per usual. But just because it's like talking to a Disney princess when you were talking to her, right? There's just that purity, and you're like, why are you not jaded or cynical? What the hell's wrong with you? Oh, right. Your memory's wiped of all your trauma. You have no reason to emote from that place of creation, right? It's very different.
Yeah.
You have none of those attachments, right? So I thought that's why I was just like, wow, I couldn't connect with her. Although in front of me was what humanity classifies as the ideal human, where she comes from a place of pure heart. Her intentions and excellence and all that, and her point of view and perspective on how things happen comes from a place of heart. There's no like maliciousness to it, righteousness for it, none of that, right? So, and then so the asshole in me is like, oh yeah, whatever. Like you couldn't remember. Someone cut that damn watermelon for you. You just couldn't remember because you're so, but it was one of those things where it's just like, even if we were presented an ideal version of enlightenment, whatever the hell that looks like, you can't connect to it. Like as a human, you're just confused. Like you just go like, huh? Like this is fiction. This feels like, for me, it felt very weird. Like I struggled with that one a bit. Not because of her, but what she represents. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was challenged with that. Like viscerally challenged until I mentally understood she had no memory of trauma, right? Yeah. So she's creating from a very different place but then it's one like, why are you here then? You know what I mean? The whole point of the human experience is creating from a place of trauma.
I don't know.
If you don't have trauma, what the hell, man? Go back on your cloud. Like stop occupying the ideal human suit that all these souls are like fighting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it caught me off guard because well, first of all, we never had a show like that. And then I realized, because the last few weeks, especially, I'm just going to say this, but like, I think we're all connected. We've all been connected. Otherwise we wouldn't have had wake up experiences. Now, maybe some people didn't, like you, that you were connected to the dragons and you had your dad's involvement and your family's, so there's a lot of different paths, but, the last few weeks, my psychic abilities, or whatever you want to call it, have just gone through the roof. And so these shows have always been like, I've always understood after a period of time, probably like 1,500 shows into it, that there's coding happening, but at a level where it's increasing and you're getting things as they're being said and so on. And so when she came on, I was like, what the hell is this? And then I went through like a little bit of what you did. And then I was like, wait a minute, I got it. She's actually not even embodiment as in like we think of embodiment. Oh, I got to do this and I got to apply this. It just actually happened to her. So she was actually like a preview of what we're all stepping into. This is just the coding I received. because I looked at that and I reflected on some of the explanations like that Franco has had, going back many, many shows about what it's like. Like today, this even came up before this show. Morgan sent me a note and I was just writing some thoughts to her. And, when you write stuff and it just comes out like automatic writing, and it was just like, kind of like, I don't know shit. But what I do know is those things that we thought that were real are falling away, and those things that we sought are coming to us. Everything that we ask for, we get. And then to your point about observing ourselves and other people, like it's coming in really strong. Like for myself, and when I'm just interacting with people, like what I'm hearing is really like it's at a different level than what we've heard in the past. Oh, it's all about you, and I get that, but it's like really coding that tells me where I'm at or where they're at, and it's not with judgment. It's just like information. And so I saw her as what we're stepping into or what we're becoming, because like Franco said a long time ago, he said these things will no longer be like memories that they've been, like anchors. They're going to be just reference points. And I can see it, feel it in my own life with, like my kids and just different things. So it was a very interesting, I would highly recommend people to watch that show.
Yes.
And if they ask me why, I'd say, I have no fucking idea. But
well,
you'll get it.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
get it.
So anyone that's just tuned in, there's someone asking. So
Yeah,
the guest was last week. Yeah, the guest was last week. Her name is Krista Marie. And Krista Marie. And she is, I think she's probably the closest guest that would basically echo the sentiment of the energy system that we think we want to attain. So after observing her, though, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of thinking I actually don't want to attain that, if that's what we're all striving to attain. And there's, again, no disrespect for her. That's her reality. She obviously, there's a reason for her to be intersect my reality and Soulogy's reality, right? Yeah. Nothing is ever, by chance. But it's one of those things, again, where you are faced with the archetype of Ascension. And then you're like, well, what is humanity if you are not anchored by those grounding points of trauma? Because shadows are a huge part of humanity. How you work with those shadows is what actually identifies who you are in this very limited aspect, right? Otherwise, like I said, go back on the cloud, enjoy the perfect, all-powerful point of view, and don't even bother, because she lives very much in the moment.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful energy from her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing her in any aspect, but it's one of those things where it's just, interestingly enough, I feel like a lot of the our community keeps talking about this archetype and zero pointing so that you're in balance. We spend a lot of energy talking about zero pointing, right? Instead of understanding that maybe humanity's anchor points is in shadow. It's actually not in light. That's what makes us humans, right? Otherwise, we would just be light and drop the other part of the spectrum and not even bother with it. So it was one of those things where it's just like, well, that's awfully boring. So then,
but would you even know what boring is, though?
But I think that's what happened. I think it triggered something in my brain, like just not like it's stepping on a landmine for me, right?
I think that's that encoding part that I'm not the only one experiencing it because I sit in this chair. But I think of a couple of things. One is listening to her. Like Morgan this morning, she mentioned a show, something had happened on a show, and I that was said. A lot of people will come on here and they'll say, "This is what's going on with you, Todd," or this or that, and I just told her,
love that? I love it when people tell you.
Well, I just take it with a grain of salt because because I see, in other words, what I was saying earlier. Like, I don't spend a lot of time with it because I really just look at the intention uh, and the energy. That's the only way I can explain it. Like, in fact, what she had brought up, I didn't even remember. Right. So,
Yeah.
but a couple of things. Like, one is in regard to Krista. I don't think first of all, she didn't seek it. That
That's
was
right.
the
Yeah.
first thing that jumped out to me. She didn't actually seek it. It
Yes. So it
just
was a
happened to her.
pure
And
gift.
then
It was
and then
pure
she
gift.
had this 11-year period where she was, and I've heard people talk about this, including Morgan. When Morgan woke up, she went through, I believe, about 7 or 8 or 9 weeks of a Buddha state, which was
Yeah.
very much like what this lady described. The only difference was this lady, because in fact, there's a show I was going to watch. It's where this lady wakes up every day with no memory.
Yeah.
Or,
They made a show about it.
right. So I thought, well,
The
that's
deeper states.
different. That's different though, because you don't have any reference points, right? And then she had
Yes.
talked about her daughter, who was 3 years old when it started, right? And so she was kind of an anchor point every morning. Her daughter obviously had a very strong role. But I think about that where, like she doesn't even have these reference points that we have. So she didn't look for it. It just came to her. And then she gets thrown back into, on around 2012, back into the into the void. And so then her energy was very much like everybody else's, because you hear a lot of people like Morgan. She said the same thing that happened to her in 1999. She had to wake up, has 8 weeks of Buddha, Buddha state, and then spends that from that point to this point today, trying to get back to that place that was shown to her, which is exactly what Krista Marie said. She said, I was trying to get back. I've been trying to get back to where I was. So I don't know. It was just a really interesting, and I really respect the timing of everything now too,
Yeah.
because it's literally, like I've been saying this for weeks. It's like, you turn the page in a book, and it used to be like, I'm looking at a red rabbit in a field of snow, and then you turn it and you're like, there's a picture of a giraffe on a beach, and you're like, well, how the hell does that connect? But now they all seem to like make sense, and it doesn't take a lot of. So with the show, I noticed that, and that's increased. Even like you coming on these, this next period of time, I think every other Saturday, you
Mm-hmm.
know, hanging with Huong is what I'm going to call it. But yeah, because it's that buffet thing, right? Like I look at this show we're talking about, you look at it, and really, I had the same kind of things going on. Like, what is this information? Like I've been over here in this pattern of navigating this ascension, right? Life or whatever. And then here this unicorn comes flying in, and I'm going, what is this? I thought everybody farted.
Yeah. I
You know
don't
what I
think she farts.
mean? But beautiful lady. And, again, no, like you said, no disrespect. It's just like, I've never seen that before.
No,
Have
I
you?
haven't either.
Yeah.
So it was great to observe that, and it was great to kind of go through another iteration of what is the purpose of life, right? I think
Yeah.
that goes through, and I think what I'm trying to say is at this point, everybody is at a choice point, especially in this moment. This moment has
Yeah.
been a collective choice point, and we did talk about this on the last show, where you can choose to be righteous in that choice point, where you
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of your energy making yourself right by making someone else wrong, or you can choose to just make your choice and be at peace with it and let everything else fall apart around you. And even if you feel like there is the wrong choice that you made, you understand that there will be other choices that you can take to move in a different direction if that's not the experience you want, right? So
Yeah.
it was just very interesting. I think Krista gave me personally an opportunity to observe what it's like to erase your memory. Because for a while, I have to say, like, I think that would have been great. Like, erase the memory of your whatever you came in with, right? And just
Yeah.
start fresh. But then you're like, I didn't feel that great either. But the payoff is this beautiful, pure energy of creation of this moment. Like just tapping in that magic, which we do in between the layers of creation. And when I talk about shadow work and trauma, I'm not labeling it in negative or positive. I'm just saying those are aspects of light. Some people play on one spectrum more than others, and vice versa. Some people like playing in the middle. It doesn't really matter where you play.
That's right.
It's just more of being aware that you play in that, and then people will echo different things to help create that reality. So if you get tired of creating on one side of the spectrum, you have full power to move the other side of the spectrum to see if you like it. It's all about being relative. You may realize, like in this case for me with Krista, that I'm not sure if I like that other extreme side of the spectrum, because I definitely have never been there. Like I can't say and that's part of the reason probably why I can't relate to her either. Because this is almost like the closest thing is like orgasming and holding that orgasm longer than 10 seconds, right? For like what, a couple years for Krista?
Jesus Christ, man.
I know, but that's the closest for me.
No, I get it. No, I get it. I get it. And I like the perspective, because I really, it seems inevitable, and this goes back to her example, there's going to be no judgment, right? Like all this stuff's getting ripped off. I mean, how much more can you rip off? There is a finite aspect to this realm in terms of what it has to offer, even with the extremity of the polarities. But I think of a couple of things. Now, number one is every I get, like, so what I was talking about, that show that Morgan had referenced, I went, well, I saw the intention. And in other words, I see the soul and I see the human condition, and both are valuable and both are relevant. Like, to me, that I just get that. And I don't even really understand what I'm saying, but it's along the lines of what you're presenting, which is, I came here to be a human. So I'm going to choose that path. Now, another thing I think about is what you were saying, is how there's all these different layers. And I think about Geraldine Grace, the attorney that's been on a few times from Melbourne. And she was talking to me a couple of shows back, and she's like, Franco talks about, like going into the 5D, and everyone's talking about going into the 5D. She goes, I don't want to go into the 5D. I want to go into the 3D and bring the 5D with me, because one of her purposes is to reconstruct or transform the legal system with like-minded attorneys.
Oh, yes.
And I went, boom, right? Like that's okay. And in fact, I saw a meme that I shared in Soulogy this past week, and it's pretty long, but it basically said, now again, I try not to get caught up in the literal, just the energy of something, which is very much what you just said. Now, the way this meme said it was, okay, it's Todd's words, you need to understand that we're all souls, and we all have different levels of maturity. That's not a judgment. It's just like, however this works. Maybe one was born 1 billion years ago and one was born 100 million years ago, or whatever the case is. And so everybody is playing on a different layer.
Yes.
And so they just went on to explain it. I thought, that actually is really good, because it speaks to a lot of things, like stay in your own lane, non-judgment and such. But I do think that one of the things that Krista Marie represented, that there is a certain inevitability, at least I'm not like attaching to this as a belief system, but it just seems to me that there's something bigger here, and that something is happening on a collective scale. I say let go or be dragged, or, force or flow, but like, I can see where it would make sense that we experience a more, for lack of a better way of saying it, a more perfect us in the physical body before we get out of here. And maybe that's just a program, and maybe that's a, apocalypse revelation program that was thrown in for whatever, but I don't know. But it makes sense to me that we would see that. But, the last thing I was going to say is that, but when we try to, because that's how you started talking, when we try to attain this thing, it's very elusive. So that's another thing that her energy, or the encodement to me was, don't worry about it. It sooner or later, it's going to drop on your head if that's what it's supposed to happen. And if not, then you might be Hung, who likes doing it her way, or Todd his way, or Geraldine Grace doing what she wants to do, or somebody that wants to live in the ethers. I don't know, but I saw that in her as well, where the like she didn't give it up because she wasn't looking for it. And I think a lot of us can relate to when you stop looking for something, it comes, you know.
Mhm.
So that's kind of an interesting part of it too.
So what have you been working on?
What have I been working on?
Yeah.
You know, this I don't. Okay. So we talked what 2 weeks ago? Was it
Yep.
2 weeks ago? Yeah. I mean, the last 2 weeks, if I had to put those 2 weeks 2, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, I'd have been off the fucking hook. I'd have been bouncing off the walls. I'd have been out there naked around the fire, howling at the moon. I mean, I'd have been all over the place. And people have seen me do that over the years. And hopefully it's changed. Everybody changes. But it was really strange because I saw a lot of things in myself. I saw a lot of things in other people, both on a personal level, on a field level. I saw the energy of the shows. The schedule was not jam packed as it has been. It was just like, a little bit here, some more there, 3 here, 1 here, 0, 0, 0, 3 days in a row. And I'm like, what's going on? But it was all perfect. I don't know. There was like this. I haven't been working on anything. I'm not going to say, oh, I've been working on myself. I've learned this, and I have, but it's been more of a relaxed, a lot of solitude, a lot of isolation. There were a couple of times that I was like, I'm going to the store. I'm going to get some whiskey. Fuck this shit.
I got a lot of
But
those texts, by the way.
well, I can speak that way to you. That's just me being funny, but I didn't do it, and I'm not in judgment if I had or I hadn't. I mean, but so there was a lot of stuff presenting itself, but it wasn't like super chaotic. It was more like, this is what it's like. You're just like, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, like almost like getting used to everything, not trying to pull or push anything, beyond acceptance, beyond judgment. And, other than that, the only really creative, period I had, I was 333. I was, one morning, one morning I got up and I made it to the coffee pot, and I bring the pot with me, and I put the mug on the coffee table, and I laid on the couch for 3 hours, and I couldn't move. Now I was fine emotionally, mentally, everything, but I just started, and I haven't been like, I don't comment and I don't really exchange with people, but I started just messing around with people, and I put up some funny memes, like the higher self talking to the Todd selves. I said something like, the higher self says, have you eaten any humble pie lately? And I said,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
no, what does it taste like? And it was like, well, don't worry, you'll know when you eat your own shift, right? But anyway, there was this whole exchange, and it was really, I guess, for me, or maybe it was me stepping out or something. And I cracked up. I laughed for 3 straight hours. I could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that I came up with in that humorous frequency was, I did write one kind of serious that just kind of came out, because I saw both the profound aspect of the human condition, because that's what you're talking about. What's the point if I'm trying to get away from being human, if I came here to be human? So I saw this chalkboard, and I just was like, looked at it, and I was like, okay, so you're just now realizing that it's not the words on the chalkboard. It's the chalkboard, which is black and like a void, and everything will be erased, and the void will still be there. And to me, that's like you go back and you start over again. Like, we're not going to have this. I'm not going to be able to be human again. So I guess what's kind of happening is it was a period of where whatever happened, it wasn't, not because I was like Buddha, you know, but it just wasn't having the old effect. It was more of a, oh, that's happening to me, and this is happening to me, and, you know. But I came out of it like feeling like, you know, I'm just happy to be here,
Yeah.
and I really am. I'm happy to be here, and again, that 2 week period, there was a period where I went, get me the fuck out of here now. My time is up. I don't get this, you know. And then there were other times, you know, but it just, again, just being really human. I don't know. So
Yeah.
not a damn thing.
That was a very long-winded, like
Yeah.
30, what is that, 30 minutes of
I
not
know.
anything.
I can. I know. I'm so over it.
Your
I don't.
communication's so efficient. You could have just said
It's.
nothing, nothing, Hung. Let's move on to the
I'll
next.
do that. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that. Yeah.
I just, yeah, I don't know. I think I think we're at a point where we are we are data mining, but data mining with intention. And what that means is all the stimulation coming at us, everything that's in the field, right? You can call that code, call it whatever you want, stimulation. But our energy system is now being intentional of what's coming in our system. And because we're doing that, we're trying to reconcile the parts that are incompatible, that feels uncomfortable, right? So for me, it seems like the last bit I've been working, and this is weird for me. Like normally my natural stance is I have this, I'm in warrior mode. That's
You're
my
kidding.
archetype. Yeah, I know. Shocking, right? Nobody really messes with me for some reason. So, which has been helpful my entire life. I've never gotten into like any bully situation or just very maybe low self-aware. I was the bully. Who knows? The point is my natural stance is warrior mode. And I have now shifted in the last month to peace mode. And it's really uncomfortable. Like it's one of those things where I'm just like, I want to say something about that and debate it. But then I'm like, oh, maybe not, you know? And then you're like,
Oh my
oh,
God, there's hope for us all now.
I know. That's what my dad
Do you
said.
realize what you just said?
That's what my dad said.
You know what? And
But
then you started with the Christy. I'm sorry,
Krista
Krista.
Marie.
Uh,
Yes.
you just got hit with that. I'm not saying it happened because of the show, but like, do you realize what you just said?
But
Okay, like,
yeah. So
okay, like, did you have a choice in that? That's what I was
no,
trying.
that
Okay.
yeah. So basically, whatever
Yeah.
no, I didn't have a choice because I was not intentional with it.
Yeah.
But whatever happened in the last 2 weeks, I became very aware that the warrior natural energetic system that I normally operate with, I don't know what happened to it.
Yes.
It's like it just like what the fuck, what happened, you know, kind of thing. It just is
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. And then this other system has come in, and I've been operating out of that system where it's like and even my dad noticed, because now my dad is, so if you are new to this show and you have not seen me on camera, blah blah blah, just quick recap. My dad is the epitome of warrior state. He was bred and born, and to this day he effortlessly carries that all the way. He's like, but he's at a point where he's at peace because he has nothing else to fight for, right? Everything he wanted in life he attained, and so now he's just kind of peacefully living the rest of his life. But at the very beginning of his life, he had to fight for everything he had to fight for. So that was strongly passed on to me, and my brother. My sister not so much. So the funny thing is, my brother and I live together, and of all the siblings, my brother triggers the shit out of me. Like if there's any person on this earth that I want to bash its head in, it would be my brother. But for some reason, I thought I could live with him just financially to ease our burden, because this housing situation in Vancouver, BC is very, very expensive, right? So I thought, let's just live together. But it's been like basically war the entire 10 years that we've been together. And he's only like one floor down, right? Like we're
10 years.
For 10 years, and it's one of those things that we don't hate each other. We just know we trigger the shit out of each other. And like even my parents know the only person my brother is scared of is me. Even My brother's wife knows that he's scared of me. So if she wants something, she comes up and tells me.
Exactly. I'm going to go tell Huong.
And then he's the only one that backs right down. So
Yeah.
then the last 2 weeks, we had an interaction where I just I was going to set him in his place, right? Because I was the only one that could beat my brother back down. And then I just stopped. And I just I'm not doing this anymore. And I just walked away. And my dad, you should have seen his jaw because he saw the interaction. It just hit the ground. And my mom's like, what just happened? Where did she go?
An angel just pooped on her head.
I know. And my dad's like, oh my God, call in the ancestors, bring out the altar. We need to buy a lottery ticket. Hung has attained peace because that's all they wanted for me was to be at peace with my brother for who he is. Because they're always like, you are the one that needs to do it because your brother is an idiot.
You are the one that needs to do it.
So
your
you're the
brother's
only
an
one,
idiot.
yeah, because you're the only one that can control your reality. So that is what, but that has been the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure what it is, but it's one of those things where I'm like, what happened? My warrior mode got turned off. And it's almost like I was totally unaware. And that's one extreme as situation in the last 2 weeks. But the other thing I've noticed is just and I'm not sure if this is happening with other people, where is peace a surrender to whatever, you know what I mean? You're just so tired of it, So you just wave the white flag. You're like, whatever happens is fine. I don't care anymore,
Yeah. I don't, in my long-winded thing, that's part of what I was trying to say. You said perfect. No, but what I was trying to say is that it just happens. It's not, there's no effort. It's just something that, okay, I'll give you a quick example would be, Franco just did Advancing Consciousness, episode 91. Don't ask me what it's called, and I've heard him talk about this before, way back. And he was talking about how the ego programs are not being supported. Even if you want to go there, it just isn't there because it's not there, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about what you're talking about, that's what I was experiencing. It was like, oh my God, I just found the golden treasure at the bottom of a rainbow. It wasn't like an epiphany like that. It was just kind of like, oh, this is how things are now. It's really weird, but I think your example is perfect because you're just standing, knowing that it's gone. I don't see you going back into warrior mode. I know exactly who you are. I know I can picture you coming into the world, just gritted teeth, let's get it on.
All 5 feet of me.
Yeah.
Watch out.
it's weird because it's none of this. It doesn't have all the, the adjectives and it doesn't have all the, I don't know. I just look at some of this stuff, and I'm included as a poet, as an artist, you want to paint this picture and it's just going to be this way and that way. You see a lot of it on the platforms, and it's not. It's just it's here, and it's not like some big event where the universe blinked its eye at us, it's here. And it's evident this way, listening to someone like you talk about it, to me, that's kind of weird.
It is. I don't know.
It's just kind of weird.
I think for the first time, it's one of those things that intentionally this didn't happen I did not manifest this. I did not manifest peace, So I was saying that out loud. It sounds really funny. I am not the type of person that wants to manifest peace. I know, shocking. But when it happens to you, you're just kind of like, oh, where did it take a wrong turn? What happened? I'm not sure. Even with my parents' reaction, I didn't even know it happened until the way my parents reacted,
Right.
Where they focused on it. And then they talked about it a couple more days to my aunties. My aunties text me about it. And they're like, you okay? I heard you were having health problems. What? Is that why you're nicer?
Oh.
No, I have no idea why I'm nicer. But thank you for checking in, kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I think we're just all very tired of it.
Yeah.
Part of it is most likely just whatever energy system you were operating out of that took a lot of energy.
Yeah.
You're at your coping level, so maybe it was like manually, like hard drive turned off for you, just so you didn't have to process it anymore. So you're just kind of sitting in like the least effort stream of energy, just so you can recalibrate. You
Yeah.
know, and you're kind of like in this mush phase where you're just like, I don't know what's next.
Yeah, okay, this is good because like prior to that, because I fully believe that we all make the decision together, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen next and da 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 da, whatever. And about 3 weeks, so right before this period, my soul said you need to get back on and start doing some solos. Right now, as this was happening, I go to the bedroom where I hold court. That's
Oh,
where I hold court. My next door neighbor, it's a duplex. He probably thinks I'm absolutely nuts, but I'm in there going, "Hey, you know what? I'm tired of this shit." Okay, just
wow.
exactly what you're.
So
Well,
you're
it's
holding court while sitting on the toilet.
no,
We'll
I'm
see.
in my bedroom.
Oh,
In my
okay.
bedroom. So I sit on the bed in front of a mirror. I call in the aspects, and I said to him, and it's exactly what you were saying. I was going, you know what? I'm fucking tired. You know, like how long does this need to go on? I know we're creators. I'm throwing in. So through that exchange, I jump on and start doing solos. And one of the first one was I'm leaving the ranks. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And I'm very sensitive to the metrics, not the how many views. It's not that. It's about engagement. It's about the field. This is just part of my purpose or role or whatever you want to call it. And I saw it. I saw it not because I did it, because I was just a replication of what's occurring from our collective consensus. And so I saw it and I'm hearing it now. I mean, I saw it and people, and it was exactly what you're saying. It was like, okay, next scene, and so I really feel like that's what's happened. And so if you go back to what we were talking earlier and you're you're encoding us with what happened to you, how it's almost like you woke up and you walked outside and again, the reference points are gone. I'm here because I'm a warrior, but where's the war? you
But
know what I mean?
see, that's
It's
the
a,
thing, right?
it's
Yeah. And
like
so you walk out, and then yeah, it's exactly what happened. And now that like I think about it a little bit more, like just talking about Krista's reference point, where where she's obviously at peace. Like that girl is at peace, all right? Crystalline, pure energy of peace. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, I so want to be like you, but nothing about you really entices me or seduces me to want to be you. And you mourn this former identity of yourself. We're just like, wow, now what? Kind of thing. You're like,
hmm.
well, it's so you're just, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. The more I talk, I think the more I realize I don't know, which is normal. You said that tons of times.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's just like, yes, but you chose to be visible in the community, right? Both of us chose to be visible
Mm-hmm.
and, spew our toxic waste onto the screen. So there needs to be some kind of like response mechanism of like responsibility, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I
These,
think so. Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those
Well,
things where it's like, just like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and the other thing, okay, so like you walk outside, like in your case, we use you. And what I was going to say is it's okay. So our reference points used to be the president of the United States and the Pope and
Yeah.
this and so on one hand, I sit down and say in a given period of time, and I'm talking to a Huong, and I'm talking to a Krista, and 4 or 5 other variants, right, of what we are. And then I look at what we used to look at, and I'm going, how in the hell can anyone even put any stock into? And I'm not political, but I watch these press conferences and these news clips of this man that can't even talk. Now, it's not just him, it's everything. It's Hollywood, it's all these reference points we had that are just not holding water.
Yeah.
And then you turn and you look at the individual like Huong or Krista and you go, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is making sense now. Because look, the energy that she represented, even though you see it as, or I'm just going to speak from my perspective, even though you might see it as two divergent paths, I actually see that, but I see the same thing, which is this. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She wasn't like saying, look at me, okay? And you don't either, right? And I think that's what I'm getting at is that's what's happening through this natural evolution. That kind of presentation, and I'm not making fun of anybody because I've done it, okay, many, many times, as people know. But there's two things from it. One, that whatever this person is presenting or whatever this energy is presenting to me, what resonates is that realness. Number one, that's the main thing. And then the other thing is, to your point about being public or not, is that whatever I did yesterday isn't me. And that's part of the gift of Krista, is that those things that aren't real won't be taken with us. And it's not like a Far Eastern philosophical thing. It's just kind of that you walked outside and there's no more battle. There's no more war.
Yeah.
So what do you do now?
Yeah.
Because, and what'll happen, what happens 2 weeks or 2 months down the linear timeline with your example as the mirror for us? Like, if you just went through this 2 weeks ago, what are you going to look like? Which, more importantly, what's reality going to look like? You know, because you know,
I'll share with you my fear. I think that's a good place to go. Yeah. So if you move from one spectrum to the other spectrum, like I have in the last 2 weeks, and then you're in like total utter like mindfuck cluster confusion, you have to, I guess, reconcile, or you have to, I'm going to use this word again, be at peace that perhaps the next stage is something that you have no control over, which, you know, one of those things, again, it's one of those things that's my fear. I am a control freak. I like having full control of my reality, right? So when things, unless I choose not to have full control, then that's fine as well. But I create space for having not being in control as well. But it's one of those things where we're all in a cocooning mush phase where we don't know, like nobody knows. And if you come on this show and say, I know what's happening, you're full of shit. But it's one of those things where it's just like, no one knows. So mm-hmm. Then what is it that we want as a collective? That I think is a more beautiful conversation. Like, what is it that we want? Do we want to look like a Krista where everything is in the moment and like, you know, magical watermelons that cut itself open and like amuse you? Or what is it that we want, you know? And here's the interesting thing. The hero's journey, so I was reflecting on the evolution of Soulogy as well, is the hero's journey is about transmuting from a place where you no longer want to be. I'm not calling it a bad place. I'm just saying you're just transforming that energy to some place where you don't want to be anymore. So you want to do something different, right? Mm-hmm. So, but part of the hero's journey is setting up right and wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of ironic because we're trying not to set up right and wrong. We're trying not to be righteous. So then it's just like, so what does the human narrative look like that is going to be fulfilling if we don't have these dualities opposing each other anymore? I don't know. If somebody is like more smarter than Todd and I, which isn't that hard, please comment.
Well,
see, Dr. C, Joe here. So
but I think you just said it though. You just said it. You even said it in your story. You know, you come out, you walk out the door tomorrow, and it's not the same place. It literally, there's no war. What are you going to do? Do you think that's going to come back? Do you think your warrior is going to? It's not. So you said in so many words, this is happening. There's nothing anybody can do about it, kind of thing. Like it is. What did you say? Fearful. It is a little bit strange. It's a very, but I don't know. I don't know why it's happening this way. I really don't. I just it's just, it is what it is today. That's the way I see it. It's somebody put a post up like, it is what it is. I hate that. And I said, I never have liked that either. It seems like a cop out, but if I add the word today to it, then I can live with that. It is what it is today. And that just means for me, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, I'm okay with not, I haven't.
You can't just not do anything with it. We like to create. Have you ever seen bored children in classes? They're very destructive.
I get that. I totally get that. One of the things that's happened over the last few weeks is I've had these memories of other planetary incarnations. And they're not like, oh, you were this and you went down the road and you lived in this house. They weren't like that. They were energetic memories. And I clearly remember, I was telling Franco about this. I remember being many times, getting put into a planetary experience and looking at, oh, I can go 10 degrees this way and 10 degrees that way and 10 degrees this way and 10 degrees that way. And figure that shit out real quick, what you can do within that space, and go, okay, I'm ready. I'm bored. Just like these kids in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole, I guess, the collective transmission was, you did do these things. This was your experience. And where I came out on the other end of it was, holy shiitake mushrooms, man. We're in like the playground of playgrounds, right? Like, this is like so wide open. Yeah. And it just gave me this epiphany of that been in the same time where you turned into the dove of peace.
Oh God, humanity, will help us.
But do you think that there is a something bigger than us, that something is happening, everything like trying to show who we are, or trying to control, or trying to figure this shift out, all that stuff is just like, it's becoming irrelevant. Like, it's not even, it's part of the memory loss thing. Like you with the warrior thing, you walk outside, you're ready to be a warrior. You've been doing it all your life. I and many people can relate to that, but there's nothing to be a warrior about. It's like, what do you do?
Right? That's the thing. You're like, it's like memory reflexing your muscles, right? Like it's naturally posed for battle. So when you're out and the damn birds are chirping and there's rainbows out and everything is just, it is what it is. And you're like the only idiot standing there. And you're like, what the hell am I battling? Myself? I guess so.
I know.
Right? At the end of the day, you are just battling yourself. And when you're done battling yourself, I guess that's when you return back to source. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, well, I wonder what the next phase is. And the reason why I asked you what you've been doing in 2 weeks, because it feels like Soulogy has expanded in a very different direction, where there's no way you're going back from wherever you're coming from, right? So like the quality of guests is very different. Yeah. You setting boundaries on the content is very different, because you didn't do that before. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm curious what your creation of Soulogy looks like. And then, because let's just talk about it openly as well. Everyone knows that you and Morgan are not together.
Well, we might as well.
Whatever. Yeah. People are fascinated, obviously, with you and Morgan, because you guys kind of represent the archetype of like the lovers that can't just be together. Right?
Romeo and Juliet.
Yes. That's a great narrative. People love that story. So now that you guys are separated, everyone's like, oh,
You
How
just
is
go for the jugular every
yeah,
time, man.
why not? So it's one of those things have been like, what for you and Morgan, I know you've been kind of working on in the background of trying to close the gap physically of being with each other. So have you had any ideas, or do you want help? Or does anybody out there have ideas for Todd to help?
For what? To
It's,
reunite?
yes.
I'm not worried about it.
I know you're not worried about it.
No, I'm dead serious. It's part of this, whatever's happened, you know. Well, first of all, let me say this, okay? I don't understand everything. I have certain things I understand, and most of them are, even though I talk, because that's what I'm supposed to do here, but it's most of it's wordless, like these planetary incarnation memories. So, first of all, just to create some points of context, this woman put out a prayer in 2008 for a platform such as this. True story. I get it, the download in 2012 on her birthday. And so the reason I bring these 2 points of context up is because it has and is a reflection of what I understand, which is there was one, it decided to split because it got bored like the kids in a classroom. Okay, just like my epiphany from these planetary incarnations once I took them all and came out the other side. And created in the only thing there is, pure love, unconditional. And so then you have to have two instead of one. And I see the one as creation and the other one as creator. You might call it feminine, masculine. So to answer your question about what's happened, she pulled down, let's do a series on the hero's journey. And instead of creating Soul Speaks 5Ds over here and Hero's Journey shows are here, I just said, let's do it. But let's do it like this, which in that process over it's been 60 days now. Yeah. So somewhere in 30 days into it, I realized, oh, it's always been the hero's journey. Like that's what it's always been, you know, yes. And that's what it is. And let's expand on that. So one, just like you walked outside and there was no war to be fought, but I'm a fucking warrior. So yes. What do I do now?
I'm unemployed as the soul.
Right. So then there,
other dimensions.
Yeah. So like, it's like a third energy is present. You can call it God. You can call it source, goddess, universe, whatever you want. There's something else happening here that's removed, for lack of a better word, remove something from the playing field. So the same thing happened here. There's a third energy that's making itself known, you know, and I use this example real quick. Like she'll say, have you seen the next 2 weeks shows that are lined up? And I'll look at it and she'll say, look at that day and look at that day. And for example, this period you're talking about, there was 3 days where there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to put some stuff in there, you know, but I didn't. And what happened in those 3 days? I was on my ass for 72 hours going through the same thing you were going through. Like, what's going on? Everything's okay. You know, like what's happening? Like it I can't even explain it, you know, but so, yeah, there has been a shift and it's a natural evolution, a natural progression. But it, you know, for every bit of, because to me, it's all the same thing. Todd and Morgan, Soulogy, the collective, there seems to be a common thread of change and growth and transformation. And for every bit of conscious attunement to it, there's none to be had. It's more like, okay, I think that's what's happening. I'm just going to shut the F up and just, you know, and just keep on, you know, going with it, as opposed to I need to do this to attune to that. So there's a certain element of that kind of, and I think your example about I'm a warrior, I walk outside, there's no more war. They're just a bunch of doves flying around, chirping peace, and it's creating a problem for me.
I don't think anyone says that out loud, eh? Like seriously, who says that out loud? But it's one of those it's one of those things where you're having an identity crisis, right? So whatever you were born into as your dominant energy system, when that gets turned off and you didn't do it, you know what I mean? And you don't even have like one event that you're like, oh, it's not like Krista Marie where she got in an accident and that event turned it on for. I don't even have an event, right? Like it's so mundane. I don't even know how it happened. So it's one of those things where it's just like, now what? I cut coupons and I talk about recipes. We can talk about recipes on Soulogy because I don't even know what's next.
Well, it's like these people, and I can't relate, but I've seen a lot of the energy of it, and then I pick up on it. These people that were going to work 8 to 5, or the old traditional, typical, stereotypical, and you see these articles, and they're like, "We can't find anyone to go to work."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, another nugget in there somewhere. And regardless of what's presented or not or whatever, I can get this. It's like people got pulled out of that energy and they were able to sit and experience life in a totally different way. So if you ask me if I had to choose one or the other, are you going to go to work and be in sales and management 8 to 5 and jump into the fray of competition and achievement and success and rah? Are you going to get up out of bed, stay in your underwear? Thank God people can't see me below the waist on all these shows, even when I have a collar on.
Maybe you should. Maybe your algorithms will be improved.
So, but I mean, seriously, what would you rather do? Now, I'm not talking literal. I'm talking from an energetic standpoint. I would much rather walk in my underwear over to the kitchen, turn on the coffee pot, go into the bathroom, put some water on my hair or like coconut oil because my face was peeling all, and then come sit down and have a relaxed conversation or, do your work. I mean, energetically, something's really, really changed. We all know this since the beginning of 2020, but I think what's happening is what happened to you. Like, it's like we wake up and all of our reference points are being pulled away and nothing is being lost. In fact, like you started out the question about Morgan and and I'm open to talk about it. I'm open to talk about it. It's been a very intense, it's been the same for us as it's been for everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I know there's a part of me innate that knows we're losing nothing. In fact, we're gaining more than we could ever imagine. And I don't know what that looks like, but there's my soul knows this. I don't have to prove it to her. I don't have to prove it to anybody, but I can feel it. Like, dude, it's all right. Everything's cool. And there's just a part of me that knows it. I can't explain it. And so that would be a reflection to me of whatever you want to call it, like that we're going to experience collectively, whatever you want to call it. Let's just say, let me put it this way. I'll end it this way. Why do they say the golden age lasts for 2,000 years? Now, if you want to get Todd's street vernacular interpretation, it's because you can only down whiskey and snort off of, I don't want to go there. But what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to say is that we come from this wholeness. This is why the mother split, because she was like the kid in the classroom. She was like, okay, I get this infinity stuff and I get the angels' voices and I love you all, but let's try something else. Let's see what happens if we split. And then it just goes on. So what happens? Why is there 2,000 years in the golden age as per the sacred text? I'll tell you why. Because we get to this point where we realize who, what, and why, and how, and all that. We're in the physical bodies and say, wow, we actually achieved this in this dense physical form. Party time, baby. But what happens? after a while, we go, this shit's getting boring. Let's go see what else we can get into.
Yeah.
So this is how we went from dragons to humans and everything in between.
Yeah.
You know,
And then this, I think what's also happening is like in this phase of creation collectively, we want a new experience, so we don't really know what that looks like, right? We can't communicate that. We can't label it. We can't describe it. We just know that it's different. Like we can't even say, oh, I'm going to raise Atlantis, or let's talk about dragons. You can't even say that because you say it, and as soon as it comes out of your mouth, you're like, well, that feels like shit. Like it doesn't feel like it's going to happen, right? It's just, and it's funny because I know I came onto Soulogy as the dragon lady, and that's not me. That's just you branding me. But that's what people have me as a reference point, that I carry a lot of dragon knowledge. And I'm like, no, I carry some dragon knowledge, right? But that is not all of me. Just like whatever you share for today will not, there's so many aspects of yourself. So the next evolution, for example, like we talked about, the dragons have totally disappeared. Since COVID hit, they've flown the coop. I have no idea where they're at. I have not been channeling them, interacting with them. There's nothing like that. What has evolved though is it's almost like the snakes have come in, and I'm terrified of snakes. Like I have a visceral fear of snakes. If you ever want to see me scream like a little girl, dangle a snake in front of me. Everything else I'm not fearful of. Snakes though is like the one thing I will poop my pants, right? And not like apologize for it. So it's all kind of evolved in astral work and dream time to snakes now. And I didn't understand it. I'm just like, why is this keep presenting itself in so many different forms? Like in my professional work, I have like clients that come up to me and they're like, oh, I really, my totem animal is a snake. Can you design that for me? And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I liked you. Why are we talking? You know what I mean?
Get the fuck away.
I'm like, tired. We can't work together. Like it has infiltrated in all aspects of my life. I can't get away from it. It's the most bizarre thing. And then the other day, I jumped on to Sherwin Ing's work.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how now he had, and I didn't realize this because for whatever reason, he didn't show up on my newsfeed, but just lately, last couple of weeks, he has. And he's been referencing snakes at so many points too. And I'm like, even this dude, this brother, who I know as an acquaintance in our little community, but not like as a personal friend, is talking about snakes. He evolved from like something else to snakes. So he's working a lot with like the serpent energy, and there's beautiful descriptors of why he works with it. I'm not going to get into it. If you want to, you can follow him directly. But one of the things that kind of stood out for me is like basically the snake energy are the keepers of the darkest form of shadow that actually birthed this earth, which sounds morbid, right? But for me, for whatever reason, it resonates. So it's just like, okay, so, and the symbolism of snakes is just shedding of your layers and having the courage to explore that spectrum of humanity, that was always demonized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, so there's so many shifts that are happening and I can't really wrap my head around it. Definitely one of those things. So tying it back to you and Morgan and Soulogy, it's one of those things where it's just like, I wonder, I understand you guys are apart for a reason. That I understand. Nothing ever happens without a reason, right? It would be interesting to see what that evolution looks like, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We're obviously pretty private, for as public as we are.
Yes.
But I also understand how powerful and clearer and clearer energy is becoming. So it's not lost on me. Now, some people, they like to poke their head in the door and they don't come out and say what they want to say, right?
Yeah.
We separate from a human perspective. It makes no sense, right?
Yes.
So we as humans had to get past that. we don't understand. It's very much what we're talking about today. We very much understand that it's relevant, but the humans are going, like we're white knuckled. And we get past that, we move on, and we're just like everyone else. So I get that. Now, one of the things that has happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been the reality, and I can only speak from my perspective, but as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So part of what's happening is you're having this landscape that you woke up the next day, and the battles and the wars are gone, right? And so I can no longer be this warrior, right? So as your example, for everyone, there's a different way to look at it, but it's the same thing. But what has happened is the psychic aspect of the human. So I've always been connected. I don't throw myself out there as being this or that, because I'm not, but I am. But so what happened is lucid dreams, speaking very clearly, other things happening. And just a quick example, even in the last 24, 36 hours. So we feel it's important, and we respect moments of separation. Do the humans always understand it? No. But we step forward boldly and in faith. And so coming out of a period like this, and it's 3 days, it's 4 days, but it feels like a fucking eternity. And your human screaming, and your soul's going chill, and and there's all this stuff, right? But it's become easier for some reason that I can't explain, similar to what you're talking about. Just trying to get used to it. So I laid on the couch, and it used to be that, I'm talking about since the day I met her. I'm talking about we wouldn't talk for 3 weeks, in the early days. I'm in New York, and I'm doing this, and I'm drinking, I'm just whatever, right? But still following the path, right? And but I would lay down every night and I would say, I love you, Morgan Lee. Right? Just come out. It just became a mantra. No matter what, no matter where I was, no matter what was going on. So go to the last 2 weeks. we have an energetic separation. We pull our, it's just a natural process. We don't know what's going to happen. So I lay down, and when I got to that point, I just kind of like imagine like me just look, because I feel like my higher self is in me, but at the same time, there's a duality. And I look at my higher self and I say, I don't know what the fuck's going on. but can you do me a favor? Because every time I open my mouth, I just stick my foot in it, and I'm not charged by it. In other words, in human terms, I forgive myself. I understand the human condition. I see the value. I see the relevance, but I don't know what the F's going on. So would you do me a favor? Would you go have a talk with her? And he's like, what would you like me to say? I'm like, I don't fucking know. So what happens? Magic, right? Evidently, he went to see her, and I received an email from her. And I know she won't be upset about this. I'm not getting into details or nothing, but there was a communication, there was an exchange, and it brought awareness and higher alignment. Now, at the same time, prior, this happened, and then we reconnected 2 or 3 times, and then I wake up this morning, and I got the transmission from her about what had occurred, and then I received more information, and this is how it works. But last night, now this is at 3:00 in the morning my time, we do sessions, and we don't do them like, hey, come do a session with us. It just happens organically. She has a strong, to me, she's a strong representation of the feminine energy in all of us. So what does the feminine energy do? It has the intuition. It has a gift of prophecy, you might call it, and different things like that. One of the things that she talked about was how these couples will start to couples and individuals, I mean, but couples specifically on our path will start to connect. And we had this happen last night. It was very interesting. And the reason I bring it up is because of a couple of things, and I'm not going to mention because these are all private matters and all that, you know. But we went into it with as a session, but within the session, because of the telepathy and the synchronicity, it ended up becoming a proxy session. And I proxied. And the level of psychic ability was again reiterated and experienced, and it was profound. It was absolutely profound. And what I'm trying to say is, I don't understand it. Don't ask me what it's about.
I was going to say, can you qualify profound? I need some qualifiers.
But how? Well, because I've had, like as we all have had, the only thing I can really measure things by is my own experience. And the level of experience, okay, so what I'm trying to say is, and another way to say it would be, if I'm a warrior and I'm Huong, and Todd can totally relate, and I walk outside and there's no battle and there's no war, not only is that a part of the reality now, but what's taken its place? So what I'm trying to say is that for everything that seems to be disappearing, that are reference points and ways of life, something else is coming in. And there's that same level of it's happening anyway. And I think what it is, by my point of, what I said to my higher self 3 nights ago and what I experienced in this session, is that this stuff that we've been chasing is coming online, and it's becoming part of our way of life. So that's what I'm trying to say. I don't understand it. I know that when she told me this is what happened, there was a part of me that goes, I know. She even said, you may have intended this. Well, I did, but I didn't know what I was intending. I didn't give it directions. I just said, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting if we talk to Morgan. I bet you Morgan has a better idea of what happened.
Of course she does. But again, even in a relationship, okay, even in our relationship and oneness, and even with my innate knowing of whatever that is, there's 2 perspectives. There's 7.8 billion perspectives. And I think this is part of what you were talking about with the Krista Marie thing, the other shows, the way they're changing. They're not all the same, but there's a common thread in them. But I can't tell you what it is. I don't know what it is. We can talk about it. We can say, look, I'm getting more from you, as an example, telling me what you told me, telling me what your parents saw in you, right? There's something coming through there that's not in the words. And it's that whole thing about, waking up and there's no battlefield. There's no, whatever the points of reference are, they're leaving us, and I can't explain it. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. I really don't. So, but what I'm trying to say is that how many times have I said to my higher self, go do this or go do that? 0.
Mm-hmm.
I do it. I intend something. It says, okay, what would you like me to do? I'm like, I have no idea, but something happens. I get into a situation with some other people. It wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. I go into this field of energy, and this is not anything that energy practitioners can't relate to, or you can't relate to, where 2 people or more create a field and their openness and their vulnerability, and then something just starts to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think what's happening is the what we thought was real is fading out and rapidly. And what we've been seeking is becoming becoming a relevant, more than relevant. It's becoming a way of life, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah.
and I think what Krista represented was that.
But the other thing, there's a comment just on the thread that I just noticed quickly. And I think I want to highlight that comment because I do feel some resonance with it, is basically just the complexity of what we are doing or what we're experiencing has been simplified. And I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Which again, I don't know if that's a good thing. You know, as the shit disturber at the back of the classroom, I'm like, is that what I want? Do I want it to be simplified? I'm not sure. But it's one of those things where it's just like, it's clear. It's the bullshit is cleaning up. So if the bullshit is lifted and cleaning up, what's going to happen in your field is pretty pure in terms of interaction, right?
Yes.
And there's no debate with it. I think that's the other thing, right? Where you're just like, I'm not arguing with it anymore. And I think that's right, Hannah Lee. And I think that's one of the things where it's just like, we're not, the zero pointing part that we talk about a lot lately, of finding balance, and is the point where righteousness goes to die. Like I've said that before too. But then I'm like, I say that enough that maybe it manifested into reality, but now I'm not sure if I like that. So it's one of those things where you're just like, as creators, you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. Let's try that. Let's try a non-righteous environment, right? And then when it appears to you, you're like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. You know,
it's no reference point. You have no reference point now. You can't. How you can? And look, is there any coincidence that her name is Lee, Hannah Lee, Morgan Lee?
Oh,
okay. I'm just saying it's all threaded together, right? Like it's right there, you know.
Yes, of course.
I mean,
everything's threaded together.
It's yeah, I totally, absolutely. I could sit, if I still drank, I could sit in a bar and at the I could drink with you all night long because I totally get the language, and the language is, "Hi, I'm Huong. What's your name? I'm Todd. Really? What the fuck are you about?" I mean, it's just like you said, it's like what she said. The simplicity is here, and we don't know how to handle it. Taino in Puerto Rico 3 weeks ago came on and said, "We're learning to be human." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's novel."
Yes.
But then he said,
like,
"And we don't." But then he said, "And we don't know what that is." And I went, "Oh, now I know why you're here on a Saturday morning with me on a spontaneous show." But yeah, and I think she's saying the same thing. It's actually a simplicity, and we don't know how to handle it. And the other thing is too, and I wasn't going to mention this, but now I know I'm supposed to. The snakes. You see, I received, and I'm not saying it's gospel, but I received downloads back in 2015, 16, Galactic Wars, all this stuff. Part of it was the snake species, or whatever you want to call it, were the architects of this part of the universe. And you said created Earth. So it makes a lot of sense to me. And if you look at Robert Sepper's work, if you look at his, you'd have to go deep, but I mean, if you look at the snake-oriented work and presentations and productions that he's done, it's a very intriguing thing because it represents two things, like you said. And if you look at the snake itself, it's a singular object containing both, right? So it masculine, feminine, dark, and you know what I mean? I mean, it's got it all there. So the fact that it's coming back into the field almost tells me that the snake has completed chasing its tail.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all coming back to where it started, which to me, you know, is very relevant in what you had to say or what your experience, and also Sherwin, because I have a lot of respect for for his stuff. I mean, I don't think it's something you just go, oh, that's just about this. There's actually something.
Definitely, it's
There's
if you
no.
follow Sherwin Ing, he is one of those. I would say, I guess, like there are certain people whose journey is to research the shit out of everything, to basically validate their work, what their inner work. Like they already carry that, but they still research the shit out of it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sherwin is one of those people that has done that. So I have an extra layer of respect for that. There's some people that spontaneously download and they don't reference anything, but he does both. So the extra layer of reference for that. And one of the things that he's been doing a lot of is basically, which I find also very fascinating, is he's actually Asian, based in Malaysia, but he actually researches a lot of non-Asian things. You know what I mean? So he's like he talks a lot about Egypt. That's his reference point. Like all
Yeah.
these other parts that are not really based in Asian dogma, which I also find like that have a lot of respect for that. When you're able to
Yeah.
come out of your cultural norm
Yeah.
to expand, so it always gives a different perspective on things. So yeah, it's all very interesting. Anyways,
Let me just say something too, because I want to be very clear. All right, about Morgan and I. Right, it's not easy for me to get up here and not stick my foot in my mouth as much as I get on here, and I tend to be no filter. So sometimes I might say things, and I don't even know what the hell I'm saying at the time because it just comes out, and that everything's perfect. But so I can't be explicit. I can't be explicit because there's too much responsibility that I'm not conscious enough to be as explicit as the human would be used to, like the old field, the where the battlefields were. But what I will say is that I understand uh, that I've always sat in this chair. I've always understood. This is why we talked about it. This is why I dumbed down. This is why, and this wasn't dumbing down. I think that's not a good term. I was representing the field. So I might know something as an individual, but I'm going to ask the questions and I'm going to react as the field. Now, this is all evolved now, and there's a different element, and part of that element I represent is more of my soul signature will come out in a more overt way, right? So what I'm trying to say is what Hannah Lee said. Okay, there's Morgan.
right
Don't make
on
me start
cue.
crying. Don't make me start crying. Okay,
Right
so
on cue.
all right. But what I'm trying to say is what Hannah Lee said. The message is really in the simplicity. Okay, it really is. The code is in the simplicity. So I could talk about what I know about our literally tens of thousands of incarnations. I could talk about the in coming to the. I could talk about a lot of things that are etheric, dimensional, and so on. But to me, the code is really in the simplicity, like Hannah Lee said. Soulogy was born as a reflection of the universe. I said what I said. She's the dreamer, and I'm the dream maker. Okay, it's a physical representation of the whole kit and caboodle. That's it, and we all are. Okay, so what is the coding in simplistic terms? Uh, I'm Todd. She's Morgan. Right? I fucking believe in fairy tales. I'm working with a higher power to create one, and I'm blessed and honored to be, in partnership in what we have together. Uh, it's bigger than me. But Todd, the human, who has in his simple words the coding that we all have, universal coding. I I love myself. I love her. I love who we are together. I love what we've created together. I am not any more than 50% of Soulogy. In fact, there most of the time I've been less than 50%. Now I'm only speaking in terms of me and Morgan because Soulogy is actually the whole universal field. But in terms of relating on a human level, uh, you know, I can't even go into what she has brought to the table. And I'm not just saying that. I'm talking about everything from becoming a better listener to recognizing the feminine energy to putting all that together to do what I've done in incarnation after incarnation after incarnation, which is to take frequencies to an ever expanding vibration and present them in the best possible way to the unified field for the purpose of growth and expansion for my brother, sister souls. This is just my role. Now, as a human, I could not have done this had I not been exposed to her, because it took conscious communication to get through my thick skull, not because I was resisting anything out of any for any bad reason, but because I needed that. And I think it's a perfect representation of what's occurring in the unified field we call the earth, that this mama bear energy, like Julie talked about, this goddess energy, this feminine energy that has been suppressed, has had to rise, has had to kick, moan, and scream, and has had to say time's up. Now, this again is a small reflection of what I see happening, and so I just want to make that point, and that so in simple terms, I'm Todd. I love Morgan as I love myself. I see Soulogy as a third energy that's bigger than me. That's in my world, that represents that which is bigger than all of us. And I just know that we'll be together. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just
Well,
surprised I didn't start fucking bawling. But I mean,
no.
you just have this. You have this
You
way
involve.
of shit. The hell I wouldn't.
No,
But
you
it's.
you know what? I would everyone that has followed both your journeys, is you guys know this. I don't need to like blow smoke up your ass or anything. That's not my style. But anyone that's following your journey is rooting for both of you. It's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's just two people that have been fighting their entire life, have found each other and have been together for a short period, and now are getting, for whatever reason, you don't need to like explain yourself to anyone because that is private. For whatever reason, you guys are not physically together, but you will be, and everyone can feel it. I 100% know that you guys will be back together in the physical. And I think it's that hope, right? That you two hold. So it's just one of those things where, again, it's like, and I think this is a beautiful way to wrap up today's show. So I talked about laying down my sword. Not, it was more by force. I didn't mean to. Where it's just like, and if you are an energy feeler, again, I don't need to hit you in the face with this. It's very clear I am not the feminine energy. I carry a lot of masculine energy, right? So same with Todd. So we are both on camera on this show, and beautiful way to wrap it up. The masculine energy is gracefully, we are putting down our sword.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
There
And
is
I
no
just,
war.
yeah.
There
And,
is no war. That's it.
yeah. And I just want to say too that I get this. I really do. But I just want people to understand that we're just like everybody else.
Of course.
that we have, uh, we have, because we can all relate to the fits and spurts of the last 10 years minimum, like the get me out of here's to the elevations but to have it with somebody else, that's amazing in itself. And then to
Yes.
have it with somebody else in these circumstances of physical separation, of just all the stuff we go through as individuals, is absolutely mind blowing. And I believe that you can't have oneness with 10 people or 100 or 1,000 of the world until you have it with one. And I really believe that that's what's happening, not just in this type of presentation, like or what you see with Morgan and I, but in a lot of different ways. But I feel like that this is a very powerful part of the human stepping into that 2,000-year golden age, when eventually we get bored and say, let's go do something else. But I really feel like this is where it happens. It happens like this with you and me. It happens with you telling us what you told us today, and I really feel like that's what's going on. So, but yeah, we're just like everybody else, and it's not always easy, but I wouldn't fucking change a thing, and I absolutely will, and have chased her all over the multiverses, and I will continue to do that because that's the way it works. That's how new creations are made. They're made by the inspiration of that that we are gracefully succumbing to.
Yes, just one of those things. We're
Mm-hmm.
at that point, right? We're at that point. All right.
So in 2 weeks, we're going to see you again. Is that right?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Unless I get so bored, I blitz out of here. That is also an option.
Yeah.
All right.
Very well put. I love you very much, and
thank you, everyone. And if you support this platform, make sure you contribute to the PayPal link. I'm going to be very direct. That is all.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go do something.
All right. Do something. Be useful.